Dear all, thank you very much for participating to this webinar. As you know, this is part of a series of webinars organized by Work Package 4 of ERICA project, that is the Joint Action for ERN, in order to stimulate research. As you know, this is an opportunity for not only ERN healthcare provider, but all the people that are interested in engaging into clinical trial for patient. This is an important aspect in order to provide to the patient the opportunity to be treated according to their specific needs. Today, we will present a webinar on framework for patient engagement on clinical trials, and we will have two very distinguished speakers that are going to be Virginie Hivert and María Cavaller, both from EURORDIS. And during this webinar, we will talk about what is patient engagement and its good practice and patient engagement in the ERN. Thank you very much for your participation, and I hope you will enjoy this webinar.
Good afternoon. My name is María Cavaller, and I'm Patient Engagement and Therapeutic Development Senior Manager at EURORDIS, Rare Disease Europe. And together with my colleague Virginie Hivert, she will introduce her later on, we will present a framework for patient engagement in clinical trials. EURORDIS, Rare Disease Europe, is a patient organization umbrella for rare diseases and is a project partner of ERICA. So during this webinar, we will present what is patient engagement, good practices for patient engagement, and the patient engagement in the ERNs. So to start with, we highlighted some of the definitions that are out there about patient engagement, and there are some other terms that sometimes are used undistinctively, such as patient participation, patient involvement. And then we have collected some of these definitions within some of different initiatives, such as you can see the European Joint Program on Rare Diseases or Paradigm, as others. And you will see that there are different definitions, but all have the same three main points, that what we have in common is that we all want an active collaboration between the all actors in the decision making. So as you can see, patient engagement goes farther than beyond the patient participation in clinical trials. And here in the next slide, it's a very well-known graphic from EUPATI. It's a clear example what I was saying before, that patient engagement goes beyond clinical trials, so from research priorities to post-approval. And here you can see the different steps where patients can be involved and where should be involved. So basically all over the process. And more specific, that was highlighted in the first slide when I was presenting some of the definitions, that we wanted to have these patients that are active in collaborating with all the stakeholders in the whole process of drug development. And that was the aim of the IMI project called Paradigm. So patients active in research and dialogues for an improved generation of medicines. This project was launched in 2018, and it was a private-public partnership funded by the Innovative Medicines Initiative. And as you can see here, it was a whole multi-stakeholder project. We had patient organizations, pharmaceutical companies, academia, regulators, HTA bodies, and all with the same aim to make patient engagement at what we call the norm. So all the actors in drug development were actively involved in order to make that patient engagement was occurring in a systematic, meaningful, and relevant way. And when we started at that point in 2018, we started from a place where patient engagement was fragmented, and it was not occurring at the same level across organizations, but neither across drug development phases or other projects. So it was, patient engagement at that time was very restricted to very specific activities or initiatives, and even at that time was already starting to become to become more a tendency was far from being the norm or very well implemented. So what we wanted to achieve with Paradigm was that patient engagement was not an isolated or symbolic activity, but instead that was considered a whole piece across the drug development process. So from the beginning until the end of the process, in a meaningful and in a sustainable manner that would lead for better health outcomes. And that was our main vision at that time. And well, how we got there, no? And this is what we call the patient engagement sustainability roadmap that could be also applied for, in this case, for ERICA. And we had this vision, and it was shared with all the stakeholders. It was not just our vision. So it was agreed with all the project partners that we wanted to have a meaningful and sustainable patient engagement in the medicines R&D for better health outcomes. So that was our main vision. And then we structured the roadmap with mission and then specific end goals and intermediate goals to get to our vision. So we have established 4 end goals, as you can see in the 3rd row, that in a certain way were kind of aspirational. And under each, we have defined intermediate goals and concrete actions. So that are the ones that will lead us to the main vision, as I mentioned. So the first end goal, that would be the first column. It was the trust. So it was highlighted that establishing a trust-based collaboration and an ethical among all the patient engagement stakeholders involved in medicines development was one of the key fundamentals. The second main column, or the second main end goal, was to secure inclusive and diverse in-patient engagement. And in the third one, that you can see the mindset and processes, so it was highlighted that we need to embed patient engagement in the mindset and at every step and across the whole organizations involved. And then the last one and another very much important are the resources. So we need to ensure dedicated leadership and operational time, but also resources and funding for doing patient engagement and these activities. So this was the main kind of roadmap that led us to the following publication, that it's in a peer review journal that I encourage you all, if you're interested in the topic, to go and have a read. So the objective of this roadmap was to support systematic change in all stakeholder organizations involved in medicines development. So meaning for patient organization, for medicines developers, for academia, for regulatory authorities, health technology assessment, policymakers, to sustain patient engagement practices. So this roadmap is valid and works for the whole stakeholders that are doing patient engagement nowadays, and provides a framework to take collaborative action within the different organizations across Europe to implement patient engagement in a sustainable manner. So we believe that this roadmap could be of benefit for ERICA and the ERNs, specifically the European Reference Networks, in order to make patient engagement in their own setting. So now I will hand over to my colleague Virginie Hivert, who will drive you to the next slides.
Thank you, Maria, and good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Virginie Hivert. I'm a EURORDIS Therapeutic Development Director. And to complement what Maria has already presented to you, I will lead you through other type of materials that we have developed during this IMI Paradigm project, and which we think will be also useful, as Maria was explaining, in setting up the framework for patient engagement in the context of ERICA and in the context of the European Reference Network and clinical research activities. So here what you have on this slide is the portal of the toolbox. So the toolbox is composed, as you will be able to see, the portal is accessible to anyone. So this toolbox is composed of recommendation, of guidances, of several types of documents that are really aiming to be able to implement these patient engagement activities that Maria was presenting to you. We have several types of documents that are helping to plan for patient engagement, documents that are helping in the conduct of patient engagement activities, and also some guidances about reporting and evaluating the impact of the patient engagement. So now I will really introduce you to a few of those recommendations, of those guidance. But again, like I was saying at the beginning, the toolbox is freely accessible, and we also are really happy to use it extensively in co-creation with you all. So on the next slide, what you can see is one of these recommendations. Like here, it's let's say the masterpiece of the recommendation, the one that was really created to define all the required capabilities for patient engagement. And what we are calling required capability for patient engagement is really targeted at the engaging stakeholders. So meaning that these recommendations are not for the patient that will be engaged. They are for the organization, they are for the engaging stakeholders. And here in our case, the engaging stakeholders will be the network of ERICA, the network of ERNs and of clinical research centers. So the aim is really to show how each organization or each initiative can be prepared to engage with patients. So we built, with the multi-stakeholder group of Paradigm, we built this recommendation based on a capacity model that you have presented here. And the model is based on 4 main pillars. So here you have the first pillar being competencies, and it really means which type of skills, which type of behavior and knowledge each individual in the engaging stakeholder will or shall have. Then you have the second pillar, which is about processes. So how the patient engagement activities will be put in place. And it's a sort of a standard operating procedure recipe. The third pillar is about tools and systems. So how those processes will be put in place by the different individuals. And it can be different type of tools, can be a database, can be other type of systems. And finally, the fourth pillar of this capacity model is the organization itself. So the structure, the framework that is put in place, really encompassing these competencies, processes, and tools and system, but also the cultural change that is needed in each of the organization, in each of the initiative or networks in order to enable this patient engagement. On the next slide, I wanted to present you with a key feature of this structuration of the framework for patient engagement. These are the patient engagement functions. So here it's really based on the experience that we have at EURORDIS over the past years when engaging our members, when engaging the patient in various activities and also with various stakeholders, being the regulators, being the HTA body, being the pharmaceutical company, and so on. So we have put in place at EURORDIS patient engagement manager. And here what we have really brought into the recommendation of Paradigm is this idea of patient engagement function. So really individuals that can make the link between the internal organization, what we have called so far the engaging stakeholders, and also the external. So here meaning reaching out to patients, reaching out to patient organization, and really to try to find the right match, the patient that can contribute to the patient engagement activity that is proposed by the engaging stakeholders. So that's how we define this single point of contact that is initiating, that is facilitating, that is overseeing the engagement process. So meaning helping patients, monitoring the way they are involved, and all the type of items that you have on the slides. It's up to each organization, it's up to each engaging stakeholder to really define how to organize the patient engagement function, depending on the scope, depending on the stakeholder itself, it may be organized by type of activities in which there is an engagement of patients. It might be also organized by type of medical area. So that's also something that we will have to discuss with you in the setting up of the framework for patient engagement within ERICA. On the next slide, I want to continue with this masterpiece of recommendation, just to show you the table of contents, meaning all the recommendation and all the key elements that were discussed between the different partners of Paradigm and seen as very important in setting up patient engagement. So I won't go into the details of each of them, but you can see, for example, that there is an item on the shared purpose and the role and the responsibility of each stakeholders in the engagement of patients. The topic of respect and accessibility, so meaning having materials that is accessible for the patients if we really want to gather their input in an appropriate manner, but also how to ensure the representativeness of all stakeholders in each of the activities. And I will let you go through this table of content at your own pace. But I want to show you a bit more on how, which type of information you will actually have access to. So for each of the items that were presented in the table of content, we have created fact sheets that are really showing the main aspect of these 4 pillars that I was presenting at the beginning. And here that's only one example of the pillar on competencies for the overarching patient engagement. So that's what we call the core set of capabilities for patient engagement. And as you can see in the red box, what is really key in the beginning, in the establishment of patient engagement, is to align on the aim and the objectives of the patient engagement activities in a way that it's understandable by all stakeholders. So everyone is really aware of which activities it will represent. Of course, these objectives have to be aligned with the patient needs. So it's not patient engagement for the sake of patient engagement, but it's really with the idea of serving the patient needs. And then you have to really look for the right, the appropriate target population in order to match and achieve the objective that have been selected. So that was for the core set of capabilities, so basically the overarching principle. But then also, again, just with the idea of giving you an example, here I have presented you with the fact sheet on the item 3, the representativeness of each stakeholders in the patient engagement activities. And here you can see that you have one aspect about competencies, one aspect about processes, tools and system, and organization. So meaning that for each of the items that were appearing on the table of content a few slides before, you will be able to access to a fact sheet which presents you with all those 4 pillars for each of the various items. One last thing that I wanted to share with you before we enter into the Q&A session is another document. So far I've been talking about this recommendation for the engaging stakeholders to put in place patient engagement activities. Here it's more a document that is produced for the patient, that was created in order to raise awareness on how patients can navigate the environment and all the activities that are proposed to them. But actually there is a document that is really serving everyone. So this document has for primary objective to raise awareness on the consequences of the engagement. So meaning, depending on which choices the patient will make, which activity he or she will engage into, this has consequences on the type of activity that he will be or he won't be able to undertake afterwards. So the main objective, like I was saying, it's to raise awareness for the patient so that they are able to make informed choices. But also it's aiming at serving as a basis for the engaging stakeholder to be able to be, let's say, in responsibility with regard to the patient when they are proposing activities to them. So that's what we have put in the second bullet point, highlighting how each stakeholder could better manage competing interests. So anticipating when patients are engaged with different type of stakeholders or on different type of activities. And also when it occurs, trying to suggest mitigation risk strategies so that there is no conflict of interest arising in this context. And actually, this document is composed of several sub-documents. So we have again, the masterpiece. So big document that is really this guidance to patients and engaging stakeholders on how to manage competing interests. We've created a short version of it so that it's easier to go through the key points. And it's, I would say, a 2-3 pager document that you can easily read. For the patient themselves, we have a template. That's what we call this log of patient engagement activities. The idea behind is really for the patient to record each type of activities, each type of stakeholders he is meeting with, he is working with, in order to keep that record for future other activities. And to complement those documents, we have created educational scenarios on these competing interest and conflict of interest matters, meaning that it's in the format of a Q&A, and you are presented with different situations, different choices to be made, and for each of the situation and choices, we are explaining why or why not you should or should not accept different type of patient engagement activities. So this is to conclude on the tools and to reposition everything that we have presented to you, Maria and myself. I wanted to make a last point on what we are due to deliver in the context of ERICA. So what we have to deliver by the end of the project, meaning by February 2025, is the foundation for a framework for patient engagement in clinical research activity within the ERICA. So, like we said, we will get inspired, of course, by all the work that has been done in the previous project, including, as you will have understood now, in the Paradigm project. But we won't do that in isolation. So we also need your help for that. We will look with a really very much interest to the survey that you will answer. The survey that I'm talking about has been circulated to you on the 10th of May, and we shall have the result of it by mid-June. So there are, as you will see, some questions in there that are about patient engagement, and we will really get inspired by your answer here. We will have also at hand the 5 years evaluation by the Commission of the European Reference Network that should be published by the end of the year in 2023. And by the work that has been done already with the collaboration between the European Reference Network and the EPAGs. And like I was saying, on top of that, it needs to be something, this framework that is agreeable and that is really functioning for everyone. So we really need to co-create it with the ERICA partners. So this webinar is only the beginning. We want to start the discussion with you, and we want also to get your question and feedback on what we have been presenting today. So now, with big thanks from our side, we will enter into the Q&A session, and here are also our contact details for further interaction. Thank you very much.
Hello, can you listen? I think we are live now. So thank you all for joining the webinar. I see now Luca and Virginie also online. We wanted, before we started the Q&A, so while you type your questions, or if you prefer to unmute, we wanted to kind of recap on what we have just presented. And
I would like to ask Virginie, or sorry to interrupt you, Maria. I would like to ask to Virginie and Maria a small recap before starting the Q&A session, meaning kind of a pills or a very concentrated recap of what you think are the really critical points, because these are going to be the points that we would like to put in the video that will go on the YouTube channel of Erica Project, in order to, let's say, stimulate people also to have a look to the registration of this very interesting and extremely, let's say, educative webinar that you just gave.
Thank you, Luca. Yes, so as Luca was just introducing us, we will just give a snapshot on what we have presented. So we set a bit the scene for your questions. So we would like to highlight the main messages that we presented, being, as you have seen, we have structured our presentation first starting on what is patient engagement and where patients should be involved all along the medicine's life cycle. And then we focused a lot our presentation on the outcomes and what we call good practices for patient engagement. So mainly the outcomes of the IMI project paradigm. And specifically, we have presented the patient engagement toolbox that I will also share with you in the chat, the link where you can see all the tools that we have developed during the project. Not only what Virginie has presented, but we have developed a different set of tools that you will see. Well, you've seen that they are structured if you want to conduct a patient engagement activity, when you plan a patient engagement activity, and when you monitor and evaluate the activity. So I will put in the chat the link so you can check and download the materials, which are for free and available. And also the other part that I presented is what we call the patient engagement sustainability roadmap, and on how we structured our work in paradigm with our main goal and vision, and the intermediate goals to achieve this sustainable patient engagement within the different stakeholders. So, and then we ended up this webinar with the patient engagement framework that we will develop for ERICA, that the project that we are partnering with Luca, and we have our main deliverable to be finished by the end of the project, so will be February 2025. And as Virginie just mentioned, we are working on that, and we sent a survey a couple of weeks ago to the different ERNs and the European patient advocacy groups that are working with the ERNs to understand their needs and their challenges in order to create a framework that would be useful for the different ERNs to conduct patient engagement in clinical trials. So I think with that, if it's okay for Luca, I don't know if Virginie wants to add anything, we can open the floor for discussion, if there's any questions.
Yeah, there was a question in the chat from Ira asking if the slides will be available. Actually, the video will be available. So yeah, you will have the opportunity and the possibility of having a look to the video whenever you want. And as I was just mentioning, we will produce also YouTube video that are going to be the pills, the essential point of the webinar, in order to simulate all the people that are really interested in this topic to connect and to have a look to the full size of the video. Another aspect that we might think about, but we have to ask to Virginie and Maria their availability, is also to have a follow-up, meaning if some critical topic will come, or a very specific question on a particular topic will come, then we will be more than happy to set up kind of webinar part 2, meaning the possibility of having this opportunity.
Sure, I'm happy to share the slides also with you, Luca, or with the organizers, so they can be also circulated to the participants if they think that will be also useful. So we will share with you the slides. And I think indeed, after we collect the feedback from the survey, it would be interesting to double check, maybe having a webinar. If people are interested, we can check the results or double check with the audience if what we are planning to do would be meaningful and usable for them.
One of the aspects that might be really interesting to take into consideration is once that we have analyzed the results of the survey, having, let's say, in the work package 4 meeting of the ERICA project, of the General Assembly, to have, let's say, a part of this, of the work package meeting fully devoted to patient engagement. And that could be kind of a different, let's say, a further result that we can provide to the ERN community and to all the people that are interested in rare disease clinical trial. That's another output that possibly we can provide within the ERICA project.
Yeah,
but we have a question. Sorry, Maria. Please
I
go
wanted
ahead.
to maybe explain a bit for the audience what we have asked in the survey so they understand a bit better, because we know...
That would be extremely useful.
So we focused our survey in different sections, but when it comes to patient engagement precisely, we have asked the ERNs the needs and the challenges to do that. So basically, we have asked if they have had any difficulties, for instance, in involving patients for seeking their input in research proposal, in research priorities, in the design of the clinical trial, when conducting and monitoring the clinical trial. And also for that was kind of the part of the challenges and difficulties, but also if they are, because there are a lot of ERNs that they are already working with patients. So for the ones who are already doing that, we have asked them how often they do that and in which activities specifically. And if there are some difficulties that, for instance, if they could not only not recruit patients or they could not communicate further results with the community, so to understand better what have been done and what is need to be done, kind of. So from there, we will kind of draft this and provide this framework.
Yeah, because sorry to interrupt to you, but this is kind of an aspect because that it's important to be taken into consideration. We don't have a clear picture of the patient involvement, meaning we know sporadically how this has happened, but I mean we don't have a clear vision of how ERN and also other rare disease initiatives were able to set up a real involvement of patient in the planning and preparation of the clinical trial. And that's one of the reasons why we were very happy for the contribution from Virginie and Maria to the survey that is currently online. The survey will stay online until June 15, and we will encourage you to participate to the survey and to give answer to this survey. But we already have 2 questions for you. One from Francesca Guglioni. From your experience, can patient involvement increase patient participation in other future trials? Meaning, one of the critical problems for a rare disease clinical trial is recruitment. And do you think that involving patients from scratch, meaning from the preparatory phase, could be a good strategy in order to, let's say, solve this problem or contribute to solve this problem?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Luca. Maybe I can try this one. Good afternoon, everyone. From our experience, yes, not only patient involvement can help with the recruitment of on the current trials, I would say, meaning that when patients are involved in the design, they know better the study, they also can input on the endpoints. And we have had cases where this was really, let's say, perceived as a guarantee of a trustful clinical trials by the other patients from the community. So I'm really convinced that having patients involved in the design and in the setup of clinical trials has a positive impact on the participation. I think that for future trials, it's a bit of the same. It's a matter of generating knowledge, and it's a matter also of having the right approach to what needs to be measured, what needs to be improved in the condition, so that really the trials and is answering to the patient needs. So I will say in short that this is a yes for current and future trials. And then I cannot see if we have the second question.
Virginie, may I keep on asking? I mean, because your specification is relevant, but the I think is your contribution would be relevant is to humanize clinical trial. I mean, sometimes in the clinical trial design, patients are requested to, let's say, very short time visit that not always are affordable from patient, not only patients, but also caregivers of the patient, meaning that it's difficult for them to be able to really participate. And sometimes patient and caregiver are so scared that they kind of decide not to participate to the clinical trial. Could you comment on this and could you suggest how to avoid these kind of problems that unfortunately are occurring?
Well, I mean, what you said is true, is that I think that when we are thinking of patient being involved in the design and setup of clinical trials, it encompasses all the aspects. So not only, I would say, the scientific or medical aspect, but also the logistics. So there has some input of patients that are not linked to endpoints or what is the symptoms or biomarkers or whatever exclusively, but that are linked to how many visits I can do or when can I go. Like also depending on who is the patient population. If there are children or adults, maybe you will want to have the visit on a Wednesday or on a Saturday, not to miss school. So this type of very concrete inputs are also what we meant when we see when we say that patients should be involved in the design and the setup of clinical trials. And then there are also other components that are linked to maybe how to organize clinical trials in a way that is less of a burden for the patients. If they cannot travel to the hospital, then you might have alternatives that involve also monitoring the patient at home or using digital solutions. So it's very varied, I would say, in terms of what we can envisage and the type of input, but also the type of responses that we can give.
Follow what you just said. I just participated to the EMA webinar on the disseminated clinical trial, and I'm part of that working group. Remote monitoring could be an intriguing and interesting solution to be explored. Do you think that this could be accepted by patient, and do you think that this could be an easier or more affordable way to let patient participation to clinical trial? Meaning, sometimes referral center or center that are enrolling patient are far from patient homes, or from where they live. Do you think that introducing this aspect of remote controlling and evaluation of the patient could support and the enrollment, but at the same time making life easier for patients that are willing to participate to a clinical trial?
Well, personally, I think that yes, we have seen that also with the COVID, that in some occasion it's really helping to be able to have decentralized approach to clinical trials. I think it's a field that is developing. We, as EURORDIS, we are not involved in trials at home, but there is this IMI project where patient organization are also contributed, that is exploring precisely how to progress with that. And now we have also recommendation from the EMA ACT-EU task force that you were mentioning on how really to implement decentralized trials. So I think it's a field that is in development, and I think that in the field of rare disease, it has certainly a lot of benefits. And maybe I can just add one additional thing, that as long as we don't lose the human factor, the human link between the patient and the doctor. So that would be my only maybe personal recommendation. Maria, you want to add on this?
No, I
Maybe.
think you covered everything. I think the other question I just wanted to add before, it was the other question that I think Merce has asked. It was very in line with the previous one. So I think it was on the impact. So from your perspective, how can patient engagement in how patient engage in order to have the most beneficial impact for them? But I think we have covered this. So by involving the patient from the start, the medicine that will be out will cover their needs. So in the end will be beneficial. So I think you covered also this one with the first one. So I'm not sure if we have any other in the chat or in the question tab.
Not in the chat, but I have another question for you. Most of the aspects that you were covering were for, let's say, drug or medicinal products. What about other tools that can support and help in the quality of life? Do you think that this recommendation that you just mentioned could fit also for this kind of tool? And eventually, do you think that other recommendations should be needed, or some aspects should be, let's say, underlined for this other, let's say, non-medicinal product that could nevertheless produce have an impact, hopefully good impact, in the quality of life of the patient?
Well, there is now a lot ongoing on medical devices, and there's a lot of work on patient engagement also in the development of medical devices. And IRDIRC, so the International Rare Disease Research Consortium, has different task forces on it, and they will develop as well a kind of guideline and on these facts. So I think that, and also is a bit linked on what you mentioned, also on the decentralized trial. So the field is evolving very quickly. A lot of things are coming along. And we know that in rare disease, there are like 95% they don't have a treatment. So we focus on medicines development, but we know that there's much more besides treatments and medicines. Like we have the care part that is very important, and the mental health that now we are focusing a lot, and also the medical devices. So yeah, I don't know if Virginie, you want to complement on that.
Well, maybe one small point, because you said it all from this aspect that is non-drug related, as well at the regulatory level. Now the EMA has a new scope, which is not only exclusively dedicated to medicine development, but also encompassing some activity linked to medical device. So I think that it also goes in the same direction that what you said, Maria, that all the things are converging, let's say, to diversify the way we try to answer to patient needs. And there was also a very good point with regard to medical device, that it's not only linked to disease per se, but also to disability. And that is a key aspect in what we are doing also nowadays at EURORDIS.
We have also a question from Marcos Puebla Science in the chat that thanks you for the presentation, and he would like to know your views on the use of patient-reported outcome in rare disease. We would like to remember that the previous webinar was exactly on this point, and the video and the recording of the video is available in the ERICA website, but nevertheless, they seem to be especially useful in rare disease because rare diseases are not often well characterized, but they seem to fail when implemented in trial. What is your view?
Well, maybe I like to understand what type of failure was identified. If we stay more on the positive side, we have example where PROs have really helped to target those endpoints and needs in specific disease area that were not addressed maybe appropriately in the past. I haven't been able, unfortunately, to follow the previous webinar, but we have the very well-known example of the PRO that were used in the Duchenne muscular dystrophy field with the new measurements with the that was developed with the help of the Duchenne community, with the upper mobility of patients that were in wheelchair and that couldn't benefit previously from the development in this field. So I would say there are for sure a lot of things to improve, but I think PROs is also something that we should consider more carefully. It's also something that we have focused in ERICA in another work package. And it also goes with more broadly the fact to better use data generated by patients and by patient organizations. So not only for outcome, I would say, not only for measurement, but also for patient preferences, also for everything that is related to covering unmet needs.
Yeah, and I wanted to share, maybe I will share in the link for Marcos, that in ERICA, actually, in the other work package 3, we have developed a prompts repository, so where you can find patient-reported outcome measures that have been validated, and you can find per disease what's available. So it's still the first attempt to collect all of them. So you will see that for now, it's main focusing on the ERN EuroBloodNet. So, but I will share the link in the chat so you can see what is available out there, at least what we have for now. And maybe if you would like to expand more, Marcos, on your question, and we are happy to go more in depth. I just shared with you all the link on the repository that has been developed and will be feed it within these years of ERICA. So for now, it's just the first bunch of prompts, but we will cover more.
May I ask you what you think about patient-reported experience, and what would be the best way, according to your experience, in collecting them for a clinical trial? because I think that that's another aspect, meaning acceptability and sustainability of the clinical trial from patient, let's say, vision or point of view. Do you have any, let's say, suggestion on what should be, what would be the best way of taking them into account?
On Prem, I'm not sure I'm the best person to answer, to be honest. So I would suggest to maybe we ask the question to some colleagues. But
No, because I mean, I think that that would be a really interesting point to be taken into consideration, meaning during the clinical trial and at the end of the clinical trial, checking for acceptability. I mean, how patient really felt and what are their, let's say, hints on how we can humanize or make the clinical trial more suitable and accessible and in a way performable so that because one of the other critical point of the clinical trial is patients that are deciding to quit. And this is a pity, first for the patient, but second for, in general, for the population, meaning that it will be difficult to define good treatment strategies if we want reach a critical number of patients treated, as you know very well. So in a way, I think that also this kind of collection and what would be the best way to collect this suggestion could be really interesting and could be stimulating and could really provide relevant hints also for the clinical trial design.
Yeah, maybe I can add something here, Luca. So I think that this is all can be all linked on how we plan the patient engagement activity. So if we follow kind of the theoretical framework, and we know that it's not always, like in the theory everything works, but then in practice it's not always easy. But it's what Virginie has presented before, and what we call the capabilities and the patient engagement manager. And that's what we hope that within the ERNs, and they have dedicated already persons to do that, so could develop on when the activity starts this kind of interview or a very short questionnaire to understand how the patient have been through the process of the trial, and also if patients have been involved since the beginning, so in the design of the trial and everything, the experience there through the trial should be satisfactory. And that's what we have seen in different publications, in different papers, that the retention is increased and the recruitment also. So if the patient engagement activity has been done in a kind of in a sequence and consistent through the whole clinical trial. But it's a thing that we can also check with in the survey with the ERNs, with the different ERNs, because as we mentioned, we have 24 ERNs, so they are all working differently, and because they are in different disease areas. So in ones are more used to work with patients, and because of the disease, some other disease areas are less used to do that. So we can understand from the needs of the different ERNs, and we can try to also go more in deep on this if it's something that the clinicians think that would be interesting to cover in the framework. We can do like a checklist or something that could be useful, like because we don't want to create a burden also in the patients, because when they already get into the trial, they need to complete the informed consent form, hundreds of other questions. We don't want to do another one for them, but just like
no, it's true.
That could be go to the point and could be useful for the reporting and the evaluation also after the trial.
That's unfortunately one of the aspects, meaning patient coming to the day clinic and getting such an enormous amount of paper to read and sign. But I mean, there are ways in order to make this more acceptable. I mean, we are in our center, we are now just experimenting or validating videos that could help, meaning while they are in the waiting room, have a look to the video. So when they step into the day clinic, they can ask the question, probably, and can focus on specific question. And this may be a way also that we can think about applying also in the clinical trial, in order to collect every visit their experience while they are waiting. And so we can have kind of a good way of, kind of a natural history of the patient of experiences during the clinical trial that might be a relevant point to be taken into consideration for the next experiences. Well, we are perfectly on time. I would like, since I do not see any other question, I would like to thank very much Maria and Virginie for their great webinar, for their great contribution, their answers. And again, this is still an open work. We warmly invite everybody to answer to the question, to the survey. Maria kindly share the link for the survey, and also for those that are part of the ERN to participate to the ERICA General Assembly in Madrid next July, and especially to Work Package 4 session that will be devoted to clinical trial. Thank you again, Maria and Virginie, and obviously to all the participants.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a nice afternoon. Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.